Hey, good people. Arthur Morris here. In this video, we're going to look at the domain and range of the graph of a continuous function. So we have the entire graph of the function h as shown in the figure below. Write the domain and range using interval notation. Interval notation. All right, so one thing that I like to do here, first of all, notice that we have open circles on each end. That means we're not including those particular numbers, but so when we write our interval notation, if we have open circles, that means we will use parentheses. But one thing I like to do is to draw a box. This may not be perfect. Let's see here. So draw a box around this function, going through the points, the end points of the function. So I like to draw a box around that function. And that's going to help me find my domain and range. So your domain is going to be with respect to the x-axis. Your range will be with respect to the y-axis. So if we're looking at our domain and we're looking at the interval notation, we want to look to see how far this graph goes from left to right with respect to the x-axis. So drawing this box helps me to see that on my x-axis that this goes from -3 to +2. That's how wide that graph is. And since I had open circles, I have to use parentheses and go from -3 to +2. And that would be my domain in interval notation. So domain is from left to right with respect to the x-axis. So you may have guessed it, range would be from the bottom to the top with respect to the y-axis. So again, if I draw this box, I can quickly look at my y-axis and see the bottom and top numbers. So my range, the lower point is -5 with respect to the y-axis, and the upper is 4. Now the -5 is solid. It has a solid line. I don't have an open circle at -5. But if I look at 4, the highest point has that open circle. So my range, I would have a bracket at -5 since it had a solid line going through it to include -5, and then it goes all the way up to 4, but parentheses at 4 because we have that open circle at that highest point to show that 4 is not actually included. So that would be our range from -5 all the way up to +4. So that's why I like to draw the box around those. Alrighty, let's look at another one. Okay, so here we have the domain of this one. Again, you may want to pause the video and sketch this graph out. But I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to draw me a box to help myself out with the domain and range for this graph. So it goes all the way up to here, then that endpoint, and then draw a box just to include all the endpoints to enclose that graph. And what that does, that helps me to quickly identify my domain and range. So again, I see that I have open circles on the endpoints there. All right, so my domain with respect to the x-axis again, starting from left to right, farthest to the left is -3, the farthest to the right is 5. So my domain, and since I have an open circle at -3 and an open circle at 5, would be parentheses -3 all the way over to 5 and then another parentheses. Range is bottom to top with respect to the y-axis. So the lowest point is -2. If I look over here to the left, I have an open circle at -2 all the way up to 5. And I look over here to the right, I have an open circle at 5. So again, I will use parentheses. So parentheses -2 and then all the way up to 5 and parentheses again because I had an open circle, unfilled circle. All right, so that's my domain and range in interval notation. And we're going to look at one more graph. All right. So here, so again, I'm going to draw a box to help me out. So box here, all the way down to the bottom of this graph, all the way over to that end point, and then up to the highest point of that semi-parabola, and then there. All right, so from there, you look at your x-axis for your domain. And I notice to the left, I have a filled in circle, so I will use a bracket to include -2, and it goes all the way over to 3. But when I look down at 3, I have an open circle at 3, so I'll use a parentheses beside 3. So a bracket at 2 because I have a filled in circle at -2. And then an unfilled circle at 3, so I have a parentheses there for my domain. And then range is from bottom to top with respect to the y-axis, so 4. But when I look to the 4 at the graph, there's an open circle at 4, and then it goes all the way up to 5 where there's a solid line. So 4, since I had an open circle, I need parentheses at -4, not 4, -4, and then all the way up to +5, and I have a solid curve going through 5. So I will use a bracket. And that's how you find your domain and range from the graph of continuous functions. Alrighty, good people. Hope you found this video to be helpful, and I will see you on the next one. Thank you.